Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to rename variables in Stata. And so you'll see here, I've got Stata already open. Over here, you can see that I've got data already loaded into Stata. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to show two ways to rename variables. So to start off, let's take a look at our data. So this is just going to open up what everything looks like. And so let's rename this variable unit ID, and we'll rename this other variable STABBR. So we'll do this two different ways. So it is possible to do some of these functions by navigating through the menus, but that gets to be too clunky, so I'm not even going to show you that here. So there are two ways to rename variables. One would be to go over here to the variables pane of the Stata console and highlight the variable that you want to change. So you'll see unit ID comes up there. Let's say we just want to rename that to just ID, keep it shorter. So when we highlight that, then down here in the properties panel, you'll see we have some information about this particular variable. So it says name, label, type, format, value, label, notes. So what we can do is we can actually rename this variable by clicking the unlock button, and you'll see that it goes from faded to like full color. And then we can just click here where it says name. So we can just kind of go through, and now it just says ID. Let's say that that's what we want. I can just hit enter, and now it's renamed the variable that we can see up here. And then it also spit out the code that would actually do that up here in the output. So the other way that we can do that is just by typing. So to rename a variable, it's as simple as typing rename. So that's the command. And then what we want to do is we want to rename state abbreviation, or STABBR. And one way to do that is by just typing it, STABBR. Another is by going over here, and so we can highlight it, and you'll see there's this little kind of down arrow that highlights when we hover over it. Just click that, and it brings the variable name down here. Sometimes this can be a little bit clunky, but depending on how complex the variable names are or how long they are, sometimes doing it this way can be faster because you're not going to make any typos. So you just rename this variable, and then you just type whatever we want the new name for the variable that we want. And so let's make this a little bit easier to figure out, because STABBR, you kind of have to already know what it is. So let's just do this. And that will be our name. What you'll notice here is in this new variable, I use an underscore. And that is because Stata will not let you use a space in a variable name. Another thing that you can't do with a variable name in Stata is you can't start a variable name with a number. So just keep those two things in mind as you're renaming variables or naming them initially. So then we just hit enter. And there we go. We changed the name of the variable right up here. And so that's all it takes to rename a variable. And that can be, this is a really helpful step for whenever you're data cleaning, just kind of getting a file ready for analysis, because sometimes you'll have variable names that don't make a whole lot of sense to you initially, like these over here, for instance, like this. And so you might want to rename your variables just because it makes the whole data set a little bit easier to work with. And that's all there is to it.